It began on a cold, gray London afternoon, the kind of day where the sky felt heavy enough to swallow the city whole, when 11-year-old Amelia Carter walked out of Westbridge Primary School and stepped into the misty air for what should have been an ordinary journey home. But what happened next would turn her name into one of the most chilling mysteries the city had ever seen. A disappearance so unsettling that even today, years later, people still whisper about it on late-night trains, on quiet buses, and in dimly lit London pubs where tales of the uncanny never truly die. And as you listen to this story right now, ask yourself, how does a child vanish in one of the most heavily surveilled cities in the world without leaving a single trace? Behind, without a scream, without a witness, without even a moment of chaos to mark the spot where innocence was erased. Because if a place like London can swallow a child whole, then who among us is ever truly safe? And if this is your first time on Creepy Vanish, make sure you stay with me till the end, because what you're about to hear is not just a disappearance. It is a timeline of fear, unanswered questions, and details that authorities never wanted the public to examine too closely. Details that might change the way you look at crowded streets, familiar alleyways, and the routine walk home that we all take for granted, because Amelia's final route was one that hundreds of children walked every single day. A straight path from the school gates, across Harlow Road, a left onto Dane Street, and then a simple 5-minute walk to her family's small flat above a bakery. A route she had taken so many times that her mother used to joke she could walk it blindfolded. Yet on that particular Thursday, something or someone intercepted her, and the moment she stepped around the corner, she effectively disappeared from the world, as if the fog itself reached out and swallowed her. And what makes this case haunting is not just that a child vanished, but that the clues left behind were so strangely contradictory that investigators couldn't even decide whether they were dealing with a kidnapping, a runaway, an accident, or something far more disturbing. Because at 3:42 p.m., just 12 minutes after Amelia left school, CCTV footage captured her walking along the pavement, her backpack bouncing lightly, her hair tied in a neat ponytail, her steps calm, unhurried, and completely unaware that this ordinary moment would become the last confirmed sighting of her alive. But exactly 12 seconds after she passed the camera, the footage glitched for a fraction of a second, just a tiny flicker that technicians later dismissed as a technical fault. Yet when the recording resumed, Amelia was gone, not walking ahead, not turning into a shop, not crossing the street, just gone, as if she had been erased between one frame and the next. And while this might sound like a simple camera error, what is chilling is that the same glitch happened on 3 other CCTV cameras along the same street within the same 30-minute window, something that experts later said was extremely unlikely, unless it was the result of deliberate interference, though no device nearby was ever found that could have caused it. No suspicious signals, no tampered wires, no malfunctioning power sources, nothing. And as officers combed through the area, knocking on doors, questioning pedestrians, showing Amelia's photo to shopkeepers and drivers and workers returning from lunch breaks, not a single person reported seeing anything unusual. No strange vans, no sudden screams, no suspicious figures, not even someone walking behind Amelia in a way that might raise concern. And what terrified her mother the most was that when police checked traffic cameras along the road that intersected with Amelia's route, hoping to catch a glimpse of her crossing the street or being led away, something even stranger happened. On every camera that should have captured her, the footage froze at the exact moment she would have appeared, as though the city itself refused to record her final moments. And while her disappearance sparked one of the largest child search operations in modern London history, with helicopters scanning the rooftops, divers searching the murky Thames, dogs brought in from different cities, and thousands of volunteers combing parks and alleyways, not a single piece of physical evidence was ever found. No dropped backpack, no torn clothing, no footprints, no fingerprints. Nothing that could provide even the slightest direction. And because you're watching Creepy Vanish, you already know that cases like these often hide layers beneath layers. And Amelia's story is no different, because when investigators pulled her school attendance records, they discovered that in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, her behavior had changed in ways that no one had fully noticed. She had started sitting alone at lunch. She had stopped walking home with her friends. And she had mentioned to her teacher that she didn't like the man who waits near the red bus stop, a comment that was never followed up because children tend to exaggerate their fears. And London bus stops are always crowded. Yet after Amelia vanished, when officers checked CCTV from that particular bus stop during the days before she disappeared, they found something deeply unsettling. The same man standing there repeatedly, wearing a long dark coat regardless of weather, holding an old leather briefcase that he never opened, and staring, always staring, never at the buses, never at the street, but always in the direction of the school. A man who never boarded a bus, never spoke to anyone, and whose face was always slightly obscured by the grain of the footage, almost as if the cameras couldn't fully capture his features. And when authorities attempted to enhance the images digitally, the man's face warped into indistinguishable blur every single time, as if the distortion wasn't natural but intentional, though there was no technical explanation for why every enhancement attempt failed. And when they asked the public for help identifying him, not a single person came forward. No neighbor, no passerby, no commuter. No one recognized him despite his frequent presence. And this is where Amelia's story takes an even darker turn. Because the night after she vanished, her mother received a phone call from an unlisted number. And though the voice on the line said nothing at first, all that could be heard was faint breathing and a distant sound, like a slow rhythmic tapping, almost metallic, followed by a soft, almost whispered phrase. She was never meant to leave, before the call abruptly ended. And when they traced the number, it led nowhere. No records, no carrier, no trace of the call in the telecom system, almost as if the call had never existed at all, except for the raw terror it left behind. And while skeptics argue that this had to be some cruel prank, her mother insists she recognized something in the breathing, something painfully familiar, the sound of her daughter's nervous fidgeting tap she made when anxious, a habit Amelia had since she was tiny. And though police dismissed this as emotional desperation, her mother never believed it was a coincidence. And as days turned to weeks, Amelia's case began slipping from headlines, authorities quietly reducing the investigative team. And eventually, the city's attention moved on. But her story refused to die, especially because in the months following her disappearance, multiple reports emerged from different parts of London of people claiming to see a small girl walking alone late at night, sometimes near train stations, sometimes near river embankments, sometimes near abandoned industrial sites, always alone, always moving quickly, and when approached, she would vanish into fog or turn a corner and never appear on the other side. And while most of these sightings were dismissed as misidentifications or dreams born from fear, something chilling happened 2 years later. A family living near Camden Market found a drawing tucked into their mailbox, a simple pencil sketch of a girl standing under a streetlight, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her eyes wide and fearful. And though they had no connection to Amelia, the girl in the sketch was unmistakably her, drawn in a style that matched Amelia's own drawings found in her school notebooks, drawings that had never been released to the public. And when police examined the paper, the graphite, the pressure lines, everything suggested one horrifying possibility. The artist was very likely the missing child herself, and yet the drawing had no fingerprints, no DNA, no trace of who delivered it, no CCTV showing anyone near that mailbox during the time it was placed, and as theories spiraled from human trafficking to secret tunnels beneath the city, to cult activity, to something more supernatural, the official narrative remained frustratingly blank. But you're still here, still watching, and that means you're exactly the kind of person who seeks truth in the shadows. And if you want more stories like this, more real disappearances, more real mysteries the world never solved, then make sure you subscribe to Creepy Vanish right now, because we dive into the cases others are too afraid to cover. And while you do that, let me leave you with the final chilling detail of Amelia's story. Every year, on the exact date of her disappearance, at the exact same time she was last seen, the CCTV camera on Dane Street freezes for exactly 1 second. Even today, years later, despite being replaced 3 times, rewired twice, and updated with the latest technology, and each time it freezes, a single frame of a little girl appears reflected faintly in the shop window opposite the camera, a reflection that investigators swear wasn't there in the original live feed, a reflection wearing the same clothes Amelia wore the day she vanished. And though experts have tried to rationalize it, no one can fully explain how a missing child can still appear in a reflection years after she disappeared. But perhaps the most unsettling question is the one people whisper quietly. Is Amelia trying to come home? Or is something else wearing her image, waiting for another child to follow the same path she once walked? So if you're still listening, drop a comment telling me what you think happened to Amelia, because theories range from the plausible to the impossible. And I read every comment myself. And remember, on Creepy Vanish, disappearances don't fade. They echo. It was a crisp, eerie morning in Norway when 26-year-old Erik Solberg, an avid hiker with a love for untouched wilderness and the thrill of isolation, set out alone on what was supposed to be a short trek along the majestic fjords near Orland, a place famed for its breathtaking cliffs and unnervingly quiet waters that seem to whisper secrets to anyone who dares wander too close. And as he tightened the straps of his backpack, checked his map one last time, and inhaled the cold, salty air that swept down from the mountains, little did he know that this day would mark the beginning of a mystery that would grip the nation and haunt those who heard of it for years to come. For Erik was never seen again, vanishing into the dense mist that rolled over the fjords like a living entity determined to swallow anyone who trespassed its territory. And as the sun climbed higher, casting fractured light over the jagged peaks and the glassy water below, local hikers noticed that the familiar sound of footsteps echoing on the narrow trails was missing, replaced instead by an unsettling silence that seemed to throb with an almost tangible presence. A silence that even the resident eagles appeared to respect as they circled above, wings slicing through the fog with an unnatural precision, as if they too were wary of whatever had claimed Erik that day. And when the search teams were dispatched, the volunteers, accustomed to Norway's unpredictable weather and challenging terrain, found themselves struggling against sudden snow flurries, slick moss-covered rocks, and cliffs that seemed to fold in on themselves, hiding secrets that no one could quite explain. And despite combing every accessible trail, climbing ropes over sheer drops, and scanning the fjord waters with boats and drones, no trace of Erik was ever found. Not a footprint, not a dropped water bottle, not even a stray piece of clothing. Only his footprints leading to a narrow, barely noticeable path that disappeared into the fog like a mouth swallowing him whole. And what made the story even stranger were the reports from hikers in the following weeks, who claimed to hear whispers in the mist that resembled Erik's voice calling for help, sometimes echoing off the cliffs in ways that seemed impossible, as though the mountains themselves were playing tricks on the mind, and some even swore they saw a shadowy figure moving along the ridges, just at the edge of vision, vanishing the moment one blinked, leaving behind only a cold wind that carried a faint, metallic scent, making locals and searchers alike question if Erik had truly disappeared or if something far older, more malevolent, lurked in the fjords waiting for the next unwary soul to wander too far from safety. And as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, social media buzzed with theories ranging from the logical to the outright terrifying, with some claiming that Erik had fallen into a hidden crevasse or been swept away by sudden floods, while others insisted on more sinister explanations. Stories of ancient spirits that haunt the fjords, of monstrous creatures that rise from the depths when the mist is thickest, and even whispers of secret government experiments in the remote Norwegian wilderness, all of which added layers to the enigma, drawing thrill-seekers, conspiracy theorists, and amateur investigators who left their comfortable city lives behind to wander the same paths, hoping for a glimpse of the mystery that had consumed Eric, yet always returning empty-handed, shaken by strange sounds, inexplicable cold spots, and glimpses of movement that seemed impossible. And among these visitors, a few reported finding small, seemingly out-of-place objects, like a compass buried in moss, a single hiking boot perched unnaturally on a rock, or a camera with only one photo taking a misty outline of a figure standing at the fjord's edge, facing away, almost inviting onlookers to chase further into the fog. And it's here that the story becomes more than just a missing hiker tale. For those who have ventured there insist on a feeling of being watched, a creeping dread that tightens around the chest, making every sound, every shadow, every ripple in the water feel like a warning. And this is exactly why Eric's disappearance resonates with so many of us, because it is a reminder that even in a world mapped and explored, there remain places where nature holds secrets and boundaries that humans are not meant to cross, where one can step into beauty and solitude, but emerge with something far more profound, unsettling, and forever unanswered. And as you listen to this story on Creepy Vanish, imagine yourself walking that misty trail, the fjord stretching silently beside you, knowing that a single misstep or glance away could change everything. And if you're already hooked and want more chilling mysteries that make your skin crawl, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. Like this video if the suspense is giving you goosebumps. And leave a comment below telling us what you think really happened to Erik Solberg, because your theories might just be as wild or as close to the truth as the fjords themselves. And whether you believe in natural accidents, unexplained phenomena, or something beyond human comprehension, the Norwegian fjords continue to stand as silent witnesses to the vanishing of one young hiker, daring anyone who dares to tread their foggy paths to ask themselves the same question. If the mist closes in around you, if the cliffs echo with your own voice calling for help, and if the water reflects more than just your image, would you escape, or would you, like Erik, become part of a story that no one can fully explain? A story that remains etched in the whispers of the wind, the shape of the mountains, and the darkness beneath the fjords. And so as we leave you with this tale, remember that Creepy Vanish will keep bringing you mysteries that linger in the shadows, stories that blur the line between reality and the unknown. So stay curious, stay brave, and keep watching, because some disappearances are never meant to be solved, and some places, no matter how beautiful, are best admired from afar. It started as a story. People whispered only when the sun dipped behind the rugged peaks of the Spanish Pyrenees. A story so strange, so haunting, that locals believed the mountains themselves had swallowed the truth. And if you're watching this right now, get ready, because what you're about to hear will make you question how a teenager could vanish in broad daylight, and then be discovered years later in a condition that defied every natural explanation. A case that shook seasoned investigators and even made hikers avoid the very trails they once loved. Because this is the chilling disappearance of 16-year-old Mateo Alvarez, a boy whose ordinary weekend adventure turned into one of Spain's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. Mateo wasn't the kind of kid who sought danger. He was calm, smart, curious, the type who loved photographing abandoned places and forgotten trails. And his parents often joked that he saw beauty where others saw fear. Yet no one knew that on a warm afternoon in June, his fascination with the wild mountains near Ordesa National Park would lead him into something dark, something so unreal that even today people argue about whether it was nature, a crime, or something paranormal that took him. That weekend, Mateo convinced two friends to join him on a short hike to capture sunset photos from a cliffside viewpoint. But halfway up the mountain, he wandered a little off trail after spotting what he described as a strange structure made of sticks. Something arranged intentionally, like a symbol or marker. And though his friends teased him, he insisted on checking it out, stepping into the trees while they waited on the path, unaware that this would be the moment he slipped out of their world. Minutes passed. They called his name. No answer. They laughed at first, assuming he was messing with them. But that laughter quickly faded when 10 minutes became 30, and 30 turned into an hour, and the forest around them grew unsettlingly silent, as if the mountains were holding their breath. When they finally called for help, a massive search began. Hundreds of volunteers, helicopters, rescue dogs, drones, every tool available, but not a single footprint, not a scrap of clothing, not even a broken branch hinted at where Mateo had gone. It was as if he stepped behind an invisible curtain and vanished. Days turned into weeks, then months, and the case slowly shifted from search mission to tragedy, with most people believing he had fallen somewhere impossible to reach, though others whispered theories of secret caves, hidden cults, or something ancient that lived deep within the mountains. His parents refused to give up, often wandering the trails themselves, calling his name into valleys that swallowed the sound. For 2 long years, the case remained frozen in uncertainty until one stormy evening, a hiker reported seeing someone near a remote mountain ledge miles away from where Mateo had disappeared. When authorities arrived, they found a teenage boy sitting alone on a rock, shivering but alive, staring blankly at the ground as rain soaked through his torn, dirt-covered clothes. It was Mateo, alive. But what shocked investigators the most wasn't it just that he was found alive after 2 years. It was the fact that he hadn't de-aged, not a single day. His hair length, his face, his height, everything matched the photos taken only a day before his disappearance, as if he had stepped out of time itself. Medical tests revealed no starvation effects, no dehydration, no long-term exposure damage, nothing. His body was perfectly healthy for someone who should have been surviving in the wilderness for years. The strangest part? Mateo claimed he had only been missing for a few hours. According to him, he followed the strange stick structure into the woods, found another one deeper in, then another, like a trail leading somewhere, until he reached what he described as a quiet place where the air felt heavy, like sound couldn't escape. And in that place, he heard whispers calling his name, not human whispers, but something that felt layered, like several voices speaking through one. He said the trees moved, not like they were blowing in wind, but shifting positions, forming a kind of pathway. Then everything went dark. The next thing he remembered was waking up on the mountain ledge where rescuers found him, cold, confused, and convinced only a short time had passed. Doctors ruled out hallucinations, but psychologists suggested trauma, though none could explain the physical impossibility of his unchanged body, or the fact that his clothes were the same as the day he disappeared, with no signs of weathering. People in the village began saying he had crossed into a lost place, an old folklore concept meaning a space where time doesn't follow normal rules, a place believed to exist only in stories told by shepherds and mountaineers. Others insisted it was a kidnapping covered up, though no kidnapper would keep someone untouched for 2 years. Some claimed he stumbled into a hidden cave system connected to ancient rituals, though this didn't explain his perfect health. To this day, police files remain sealed, and even Mateo himself avoids media interviews, saying only that the mountains took him and returned him, a sentence that sent shivers through online communities analyzing the case. And if you've been watching this far, you're probably wondering the same thing people all over the world debate. Where was Mateo for 2 whole years? Was it another dimension? A time slip? A hidden cult? Something supernatural? Or something far darker hiding in the Spanish mountains that no one has dared to investigate deeply? Cases like this are the reason channels like Creepy Vanish exist, to bring light to mysteries that defy explanation. Stories buried by time and silence. Stories people deserve to know. So if you want more chilling, real-life disappearances and unexplained events like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now, because we dive into the cases that others avoid, the ones that make you double-check your locked doors at night. And drop a comment telling me what you think happened to Mateo. Was it something human, something paranormal, or something the world isn't ready to understand? Your theories might even be featured in the next video. Also, give this video a like if you want more deep, long-form mysteries, because your support is what keeps Creepy Vanish alive and digging into the unknown. Now, stay cautious, stay curious, and never follow strange symbols in the woods, because you never know who or what might be waiting.